Hi everyone, and welcome to another Griniflix Adventure 8 video. Today I'm doing a lens comparison. 50mm lenses, both new and also old, for the Leica rangefinder cameras. Got a combination of M mount lenses and also the screw mount lens, so I need to have an adapter to convert the screw mount to the M mount. So the lenses I got in the 50 range, the reference lens will be, of course, the 50mm Summilux 1.4. Everything else is compared to that and then compared to each other. I've got an old Summicron F2. I'm guessing this is about the 1960s. I've got a 1950s Elmar f3.5. This is a collapsible lens. Collapsible. I've also got a Voigtlander collapsible lens as well. So this is also a f3.5. When it's collapsed, that would be the body position there. So that's the height there. So they are the three lenses that I'll be comparing, together with the reference lens being the 50mm Summilux. This is going to be my subject. I'm actually filming with the Leica M240P right now. The audio is coming from my iPhone, so I'm recording that and then just syncing the iPhone audio with the video. The lens that I'm using on that is a Voigtlander 15mm f4.5 and needless to say, I think I'm shooting at f5.6, so the depth of field is huge on a lens that wide. We can go into Lightroom and then have a closer look at the different shots that I took wide open, going right down to fully closed as well. In Lightroom, I've color coded the shots here. So what I've done is I've taken the JPEG files. So I've got the RAW file and the JPEG files of the photographs, and I've color coded these red, yellow, green, and blue. Red are the four lenses wide open. So the Summilux will be at 1.4 and so forth. The collapsible lenses, they will both be at f3.5. The next one, yellow, is at f4, and that way we can compare f4 of all the four lenses. Green is f8 of all the four lenses. Blue is the aperture shut down to the smallest amount, highest number, f16 for the Summilux as well as for the Summicron, and 22 for both the f3.5 lenses. Why don't we'll leave the fully open and fully closed apertures for last, and we'll go to f4 and do a quick comparison, and also the f8, and then we'll go back to the other two and see how we go. Okay, four lenses at f4. Let's do full screen, and I'll quickly flick through them and see what you notice. So I'll go backwards. This is the last one, and now I'm going back again. And there you go. So straight away, without actually looking in too much detail, notice the difference in contrast levels. The contrast level there, look at the blacks. And you can see that black has now become less black. And then we've got a bit more black. And then we've got more black again. So that last one there and the first one there are showing up the highest contrast, I think, as far as shots are concerned. The lowest contrast is the second one, followed by the third one. Anyway, so that's the first thing I noticed. Now, with regards to the detail, and that's the reason why I set up this shot as it is, I've got these mats here, so we're going to work out roughly where the focus is, because obviously when I'm changing lenses, sometimes I move the focus, I don't quite get the focus right. So if we look at the first shot here, and we zoom in, you can see from the mat, we start to move, the focus changes, and then it goes out of focus over here. So you can see that the depth of field is somewhere in here, which is what I was hoping to do. So that's the whole idea of that shot. Okay, the first one is the Summilux. The second one is the Elmar Leica 3.5. The third one is the Summicron vintage lens f2. All these photographs are at 4. and the Voigtlander 50mm 3.5. We can do a comparison XY and have a look. So straight away when we zoom in, we're zooming in at 100% here, and you can see the difference in contrast quite clearly. I know we had the focus point slightly different, so this isn't necessarily a clear representation, but there the detail is probably similar. I think the hints will be again in the matte. There's your focus point on your Summilux, and your focus point here on the Elmar is quite a bit forward, is about here. So as far as clarity, as far as the detail is concerned, the contrast is obviously different, but the Summilux is better. If we look at the edges here, here's the Summilux focus point here, quite a bit of detail, and here is the Elmar focus point, which is somewhere over here, so it's not too bad. If I had focused correctly, then they should have all been a little bit better here. So this is at f4. We look at the other side. Again, you have got more detail with the Summilux than the Elmar, and there's the Elmar there. The big difference is the contrast difference. Alright, so if we look at the Summilux versus the Summicron, same sort of thing. So first things, we'll check the focus. Let's see where the focus is. Look, it's similar. I think I've got about the focus almost the same. You can see it's getting out of focus here. It's in focus here, in focus there, and starts to drop out of focus there, drop out of focus there. So I think we've got the focus points about the same in both cases, which will give us a good indication of the clarity and the detail. So f4, the Summilux and the Summicron are very similar. You can see the detail there, and now the Summilux might be focused a bit further and the Summicron a bit closer to the camera. You can see that the difference in the background blur here, a bit more detail on the Summilux, and again I think that's because of the focus position rather than anything else, because they're both at f4. Moving across to the box here, and you can see here. Alright, so here we can see that there's a bit more detail on the Summicron here, but again I think it's because of the focus difference. I'm focusing a bit further away and a bit closer here, and that's the reason why there's a difference there. And you can see it in the background, more detail here and less detail there, again because of the focus position. If we look at the matte, that will give us the hint of clarity again. Focus position closer to the matte join there. The focus extends down here, probably ends here, whereas this ends a bit further here. So you can see there's a slight difference in focus position, but the detail is pretty good on both lenses. The Summilux has more contrast, but the detail of both lenses are good. Summilux versus the Voigtlander. XY again. Let's check where the focus positions are. Are we about the same? I think we got about the same this time, and everything is here is in focus as well, so that's really good. The Voigtlander is my big surprise here. Look at the contrast. It's almost identical to the Summilux. There's a factor of 10 difference in price. That's impressive. The details looking really good as well. Let's go have a look over here. Pretty impressive. I think again the focus position is slightly different. A bit further forward towards the camera here, a bit further back away from the camera. Again, you can see that in the background here, and the slightly difference in focus in these 2 points here. If we go back down to the matte, have a look at the matte in greater detail. Good contrast and good good detail. Without a doubt, the Voigtlander Helier 50mm f3.5 is the biggest surprise in this test. Look at the clarity and right to the detail of the Voigtlander. I am so impressed. The detail here in the box of both the Voigtlander as well as the Summilux. Obviously here in this picture here you see the Summilux because I'm using the Voigtlander lens, and here you see the Voigtlander lens. So actually that's a good interesting how the lenses look quite different. The Voigtlander is quite a peculiar looking lens, which makes it interesting. It's great as a retro look, and the Leica Summilux lenses more conventional in design and look. That incidentally, this is the Voigtlander 15mm f4.5 that I'm using for filming. Alright, so we've got the 4 lenses, f8 again. So we'll use the Summilux as our reference. Let's have a quick look at the 4 images full screen. Because we've already seen them at f4, we could probably guess what they are. So that's the last one, going backwards. And the first one. First one is Summilux. Second one is the Leica f3.5, and then Summicron f2, and the Voigtlander f3.5. So as we sort of saw at f4, these are all at f8. The highest contrast is the Leica and the Voigtlander, followed by the Summicron, and then the least contrast without any adjustment other than just white balance is the Leica f3.5. I think the focus point is similar to all the shots again, where they slightly differ, a bit going a bit forward, a bit back, so we won't go through that whole process again. But what we can do is we can have a quick look relative to each other, compare the Summilux to the Leica 3.5, both at f8. As we stop down the f-stop and go to f8, we increase the depth of field so we don't notice the difference in focus point as much, which you would expect. The clarity is quite good again, so we're at 100% right now. We'll come across here, again the clarity becomes quite good other than the contrast difference. And then if we look at the detail here on the side, we see we've got quite a bit of detail there, quite a bit of detail there. On the other side, both, at f8 you would expect this, that the detail starts to increase. Alright, let's have a look at the Summicron. Summilux versus the Summicron, and we've got good detail again, as you would expect. Slightly different in contrast, as we already know. Very good detail here. Very other than the contrast, you wouldn't be able to tell the detail apart. On the edges here you can see the Summicron is great focus right to the very edge. And you can see that again, there's slightly difference in the focus point. So Summilux is center of the focus somewhere around there. Summicron is somewhere around there. Can you see the difference in the background? Come across the other side, and as you would expect, same thing. We've got the Summilux right back, focus all the way back here. Summicron is somewhere around here. But the clarity, the detail, it's great, both lenses. The Summilux and the Voigtlander. Great contrast. Love the contrast of the Voigtlander. Great detail. Very similar. So similar. It's incredible. With the Summilux. Coming across over here. Outstanding detail in the Voigtlander. What more can you say? Look at this. This is between the two lenses. Right to the very edge and the detail. They're so similar. Alright, let's look at the lenses wide open. So we're not comparing apples for apples, but what the lens is like when it's fully open. So Summilux will be at 1.4, two collapsible lenses will be at 3.5, and the Summicron at 2. If we just skip through all the photographs, straight away we'll be able to see the difference in depth of field. There's the Summilux at 1.4. You notice a really shallow depth of field here. And then the Leica at 3.5, the Summicron at f2, so narrower depth of field, and then the Voigtlander at 3.5, again a much larger depth of field. The Summilux, as we know, has got spectacular contrast even when you shoot wide open. If we look at the detail here, the Summilux has strong detail in its depth of field right to the very edge of the picture here. And then we're looking at the 3.5 collapsible Leica. Again, it does a pretty good job of detail right to the very edge, at much larger depth of field here. But just the contrast levels are different, which we've already looked at. F4 is very similar to f3.5. And the Summicron at f2. Let's have a look at the detail again. Our contrast level has dropped off a little bit. There's the detail there, pretty good detail right to the edge. And then looking at the other side as well, similar detail. And then the Voigtlander, great contrast, lots of detail right to the very edge. The Voigtlander continues to impress me for the price. It seems to be outstanding value for money. Let's have a look when we stop them down completely. So f16 for both the Summicron and the Summilux, and then f22 for the two collapsible lenses. So this is the Summilux at f16. Lots of detail, lots of contrast, edge to edge, great depth of field. You would expect that. The collapsible Leica 3.5, lots of detail, which you expect right now, huge depth of field, and the only difference being is the contrast level isn't as high as the Summilux. Summicron, same sort of thing, detail everywhere, huge depth of field. Again, the contrast not quite as good as the Summilux, but better than the Leica 3.5. And then the Voigtlander, where the contrast and the detail is exceptional and on par with the Summilux. I will do a quick comparison. So we've got the Summilux on the left, the Voigtlander on the right. What do you reckon? Is there much difference? Summilux slightly better maybe. When you stop it down completely, maybe some weird distortion starts to happen when you have the aperture completely closed. The Summilux seems to have better detail. Let's go over here and have a quick look here. Yeah, look, the Summilux does have better detail when you stop it right down. You can see in the Leica here, like a red symbol there. Gets a bit fuzzy. Not quite as much detail in the so that's a Voigtlander there. In the lens detail there, more detail here with the Summilux. Well, you are paying 10 times more for the Summilux than the Voigtlander, so there's got to be some difference. But in conventional photography, you're not looking at this sort of detail, are you? At least you have the confidence that the Voigtlander does an outstanding job. Obviously, you just don't, you miss out about 3 stops. That's a big difference. You're almost at f4. Summilux is 3 stops faster. You've got f4, f2.8, f2, f1.4. Colors, great on both lenses. What do you reckon? Would you buy all 4 lenses? Do they all have a purpose? I think my 2 favorite lenses out of all this test would have to be the Summilux and the Voigtlander. What are your favorite lenses? Do comment. Love to hear your thoughts. Why would you have more than one 50mm lens? Well, for me, particularly with shooting Leica, I guess shooting manual is more to the point. I much prefer to actually use fixed focal length lenses as opposed to zoom lenses. Each type of lens has its own advantages and disadvantages. So ergonomics, ease of use, is obviously one aspect. And part of ease of use is the size. And sometimes it's great just to have something so small, so compact, rather than something big like the Summilux. But then other times you want a really fast lens, f1.4, and to have incredible clarity and contrast. So the Summilux comes into its own. It's obviously heavier, much heavier. And other times you want a large depth of field, and therefore if you stop this down, then stopping that down to say f5.6 and this f5.6, in real life photography you probably wouldn't see any difference. And then using one of these older vintage Summicrons, same sort of thing. If you stop it down, you get pretty much similar results. Wide open, there's obviously a difference in quality. Yes, I enjoy having a variety of lenses and changing them over. For me, it'd be interesting to see what it's like for you. Changing over, trying different lenses, it just also prompts the creativity to get out there and take some photographs. Some of the top shots that are, in my opinion, the top shots that I really like were taken with a whole different variety of lenses. It's not always the best lens. It's like always in photography, it's one that you've got access to at the time and what you can do with it. What would you choose? What's the best value for money, in your opinion, out of all these lenses? Value for money obviously is dependent on what sort of value you put on the actual lens, not monetary value, but how you're going to use it and how important is it to you. The Summilux always is one of my key lenses that I go to, and then I like going to all the others depending on how I feel. Some of these lenses will be for sale, and you can go to my website, peterzellums.com, and you'll be able to see which lenses are for sale. It's usually the older ones that I have access to, that I don't necessarily keep myself, and to make these available to other people to enjoy as well. If you are interested in these lenses, please visit my website and you can get the details to get the pricing, etc. And availability, obviously. If it's gone, it's gone. Thanks again for watching. If you found this video interesting, please give me a thumbs up. Really appreciate it. It helps support the channel. And if it's the first time to my channel, please do subscribe. I welcome you back again and press notifications so at least you can be notified when the next video is out. On the photography side, on my adventure travel side as well. Anyway, thanks for watching and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Cheers, bye.